So I was telling you off the mic that for the last couple ones, I had people that I didn't know at all. Mm-hmm. And I just want you guys to know that this is not like any other guest. This is... It's hard to put it to... Actually, let me make sure I turn off notifications because I do not want to be bothered. Okay. So every now and again, I wonder if you guys can relate to this at all. But you have somebody that... If any of you guys can pinpoint who you think like your first friend is or your first best friend is, think about that like when you were little and think about whether you've seen them at all since then. Because, you know, people go through a lot of life shit and life has a funny way of separating people from the path that they're on. And, you know, sometimes those paths never intersect. I remember somebody on Instagram and... I don't know if I'm okay to like shout them out. So I'm just going to say that person was recounting like this friendship that she had with another girl for like 20 years. They had a 20-year friendship. Like, I think they were like friends since they were like 6 or something.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they talk on the phone every day. And I don't know, something about that was kind of beautiful. But I am not that kind of person. You can be like and I think it's just like a personality thing. Like they can be like my best friend on the planet, and I still won't like talk to you every day. Like you could be like really the only person I talk to every day, and I'm gonna be called the mama's boy, but like is my mom. Like only because like, especially now, you know, she's older, and for health reasons, I just want to make sure like, hey, you know. You're still kicking. I just want to make sure, man. Like,
no,
you know,
for sure, because we all know nobody's going to love you like your mother.
Yeah, exactly. But aside from that, there's really, and even sometimes with her, I'm like, you know, I want to like let her live, so I don't want to like, I feel like I'm the one that's bothering. It's not even so much like the other way around, because, you know, she could call me whenever, but it's me, like it's a personality thing. I always assume that I'm bothering somebody when I like reach out. And so I've always been the passive person in any friendship. Like if there's something where we need to go out or something, I'm never the one to like bring it up. If somebody else says yes, I always make myself available. Because that's the other thing. I'm naturally a people pleaser. So if somebody's like, hey, I'm having this thing, do you want to come? Even if I don't want to go, chances are I'm going to say yes. And I do it. But I'm also, you know, I'm learning to say no. That's a hard thing for me, but I'm learning to say no because there's a lot of power in doing that.
Oh, there definitely is.
But even in having a friend for such a long time, like I was never somebody like, you know how people say, oh, you know, let's keep in touch or whatever. And it's not even because I don't want to do it. It's just my personality type. You know, everything. I feel like I get like overstimulated, and so then I want to like push back and say like, okay, I need my space now. Like I can't. I was gonna say who it was in my family, but there's somebody in my family who has a partner that is always on their ass.
Okay, yeah, I can see how that could be annoying after a while.
Clingy as hell, and I look at that and I'm like, yeesh.
Yeah, I don't know if I want that.
I cannot live like that. I'm like, man, if you don't back the fuck up, like you might be the person I love, but you need to like give me some space.
Like 10 feet that way.
But all of that is to say is that this is not an ordinary guest. This is my guy Joel, but I've always called him Joey. This is quite possibly because I'm trying to think as a youth, like if there's anything that predates that, I don't think so. He may very well be the first ever friend that I had. And I don't think people have like, I don't know how well people's memory is where they can like go back and say, but man, my earliest, you know, on other podcasts, I'll tell people, hey, you know, I graduated with this guy from Dickinson and, you know, we know each other since high school.
Yeah.
I feel like my earliest memory of us is like fucking, I might have been 4 or 5 years old.
Nah, I think we were about like 4 or 5 years old. We were living in that one apartment complex.
Yeah, and I won't say the address because my parents still live there. But yes, so now I'll intro the podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Working Podcast. I'm your host, Yasser, but you can call me Sir because memories are forever. Just remember that. You'll know why I'm saying that. And today I have none other than, what do you prefer to be called?
Oh, you could call me Joey.
Oh, yeah. I've always called you Joey.
Yeah, we'll just go with that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I have my guy Joey here.
What's up, everybody?
Back from the past.
Go blast from the past.
Yeah, boy. Oh, my God.
All the memories, damn.
And I'm telling you, it feels very different to have you on here, especially after all of these years. Like, I was just telling you off the mic, like, I look at your face and you look just like your brother, bro.
Yeah, I know when I was telling you off the mic, it was crazy for me to even think that I would look like my brother. Because when I was little, I could see no resemblance. Whatsoever, I was like, oh man, nah, he can't be my brother, yada, yada. But then, like I said, I met him 2 months ago. I was like, wow, dog, we are spitting images of one another.
Yeah, and it's so weird, right? Because you see each other at such a young age, and he has a beard and a little ponytail. Like, that's crazy. Like,
I remember I used to always have like the bud shaved, naked face, nothing whatsoever.
Oh my God. And so I did introduce the podcast already, so I'll just get right into it. I remember as far back as probably 4 or 5 years old in that apartment building, me, you, and Nadine.
Yes.
You remember Nadine?
Yes, I do remember Nadine.
Growing up, I was never allowed to have anybody over at my house, but my parents loved Nadine for some reason.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And they call her Nadine, but like, they were like, oh yeah, you can't have anybody else over. And I'll tell them, oh, Nadine says she's going to come over. Oh yeah, she could come over. I'm like, whose side are you on? Like, you just said I could have everybody over. Yeah. And so shout out to Nadine wherever you are. I haven't seen you in centuries. I have no idea. Hope all is well. But man, so before I begin, even though I already did, how you doing, man?
God, you know what? Honestly, I've been doing a lot better. You know, I would have to say after high school, I was dealing with a lot of stuff. Yeah. You know, but I could see a light at the end of the tunnel, which is...
That's for sure.
Yeah, which
it's
is
just
amazing.
Not this bright-ass light.
No, it might be this bright-ass light right there that I might be seeing. But no, for sure, man. You know, I know nowadays there's a lot of emphasis when it comes to mental health.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I was dealing with depression and loneliness for a real long time. Mm-hmm. You know, and dealing for probably, I would have to say, maybe about 10 years dealing with it. And never had like any suicidal tendencies or anything of that nature, you know, because I never thought about, first of all, I'm a sucker for pain. Yeah. I fucking hate pain. So I can never really imagine myself like, you know, hanging myself or cutting anything of that nature. But what I did, the route I decided to go to kind of deal with everything I was dealing with was actually drugs.
Oh, really?
For a long time.
Well, we'll actually get into that. But I seen you recently with your little One Piece hat on Instagram.
God, I love my little One Piece hat. Yo, that's my man, Monkey D. Love. Yeah, I don't care what nobody says. Goku will go fuck himself.
But yeah, I just like, you know, I'm glad at least, you know, you've seen the light at the end of the tunnel, and I want to thank you for coming today because man, it's been a long time.
Yeah, it really has.
It's been a long time, especially since we've been able to like stop and like sit down and have an actual conversation. We've seen each other like, you know, I used to see you like by my bus stop, you know, when you would walk in the morning or something like that. Mm-hmm. But never really like being able to sit down. That's kind of what I like about something like this.
Absolutely.
Is being able to sit down and have an actual conversation. And it's been a while because, as you guys know, kind of like how I started this podcast, chances are you probably had a friend when you were little, and that person, maybe you never saw them ever again or whatever. But like, I feel fortunate enough to like be able to like sit with you here after all of these years, and I'm sure we've both been on like very different roads and just been through shit, just in general.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of cool that we're actually here right now and able to do this. So shout out to him one time. But I wanted to get into, actually, it's funny because anytime like I stop, it's because I have like a million different streams of thoughts going into my head, and there's like my sorting machine isn't very good. I'm like, oh, I want to talk about all of this stuff. But I want to start with a couple shout outs. First, like the general ones. Shout out to everybody listening on Spotify and everybody watching on YouTube. You guys have been watching this shit somehow. So salute to you. Thank you for checking it out. I hope you continue to enjoy these. But also, and I'll say these names, but I won't say who they are to protect their identity. Shout out to Victor, the other Victor. Shout out to Wanda. Shout out to Damaris. I still remember Cassandra.
Yeah.
And the GOAT, Olga.
No, definitely.
Yo, shout out to Olga one time. And, you know, I don't know if you'll ever catch this, but I want to like personally apologize to you for never. I was trash, bro. Like, I knew Spanish and never spoke to her in Spanish. Like, that's crazy.
God, you know, she used to always talk about that too.
Entonces, it's funny how I just said. Entonces, Olga, perdóname. Yo era un niño muy tímido y con mucho miedo y no sabía expresarme bien. Y por eso nunca te hablaba en español, pero ojalá que encuentre espacio en tu corazón para perdonarme. So basically, what I said in Spanish was I was a very little kid who was timid and didn't know how to express himself. And at the time, Spanish was like a very intimate thing in my household. Like, I only spoke Spanish at home, basically, or with my own relatives. Mm-hmm. It wasn't something that was like for everybody. English was for everybody because I learned that in school, and you know, all of my friends I spoke to in English. Even though I knew that they knew Spanish, I never uttered a word in Spanish. So it wasn't like just like Olga. I'm not gonna say who that is. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just like Olga that I had that issue with. It was like everybody that also knew Spanish. I felt afraid speaking in Spanish. Like I don't know if it was like an identity thing. I didn't know, but like Spanish was like my intimate language, that it was like just between me and my parents or like with other relatives. Gotcha. I didn't feel comfortable, especially because if you guys grew up in a Spanish speaking household, do you know that oftentimes you'll speak with like whatever your country's accent is or like slang and shit? Absolutely. And so I didn't want to talk to other people in Spanish and have them judge me for the way I spoke. And so I felt like insecure about speaking Spanish to them. I can't say that's all the way gone now, but, you know, I said that little bit on camera. And I, if you ever catch this, shout out to you. You are the GOAT for many reasons, but I will explain more times throughout the podcast why you're the GOAT. But shout out to his family. Shout out to them for giving like this little black kid a chance, for letting him in your home and somehow, you know, trusting him, giving me at times things that my own family wasn't giving me. Yeah. You know, like, you know, love and attention and shit like that. You guys were kind of like my second family, and it only stopped not because of me, which we'll get into that. But it felt odd that we had disconnected at some point, and I just, without getting too emotional, I just want to shout out to you guys. I feel like I remembered everybody. Didn't you have like? No, I'm not gonna guess.
There's some new nieces who came into the fold.
Yeah, shout out to the new ones.
Nah, but that's a good memory for you to remember the other ones for sure.
Yeah, because I remember. Yeah, I remember only a couple of the young ones, but I imagine there's more. So shout out to the rest of the young ones. You have no idea who I am, but just know I felt like part of your family at one point. So
God, still are.
yeah, shout out to y'all. So, anyways, where do we begin? So I was telling you how like it was me, you, and Nadine, and man, you also what was your little chihuahua's name, bro?
Tiger. Nah, I know that's an oxymoron, but yeah, this dude was a little vicious motherfucker. He really was. Dog,
I still hear him barking.
You still hear him bark. I still hear him barking in the middle of the night like, Tiger, that's you?
Bro, oh my God.
Some Pet Cemetery shit.
Yo, that wasn't even where I was going to start, but I have a bunch of thoughts running into my head, and I'm trying to think of like some of my earliest memories there. And
Yeah.
I remember, man, I'd go to your house, and so the way most of the apartments in that building were structured was like bedroom, sort of like living room, and then kitchen, and then in the kitchen somewhere was like a bathroom.
The bathroom.
Like near like the window. And it was like a railroad type thing. So
Yeah.
like it was one path where you could walk into each of those rooms by just walking into a straight line.
Yeah. That's why I made our mothers easier to hit us with chancletas, because all the straight line, no quarters to run around.
They just take it all.
There was no Matrix back in the time, so we couldn't do those moves.
But man, I remember distinctly there was a time that I was trying to like use the bathroom, and I was super scared to go into the bathroom, like from like y'all rooms over into like the bathroom, because Tiger was there barking, and I was like, yo, I don't want this little ass dog to like bite me and shit. And I think I had him like in a little cage, so like,
yeah.
But the thing is, something about chihuahuas, bro, and if you're little, you're put off by those loud ass noises, and
nah, they're vicious for little dogs.
But in reality, they bark louder than they are.
Oh, absolutely.
You hear them barking, and you're like, what the hell is that? And then you look down, oh, this little rat. This is the thing making all that noise.
Well, let me tell you, Tiger found out the hard way, having a bigger bite than bark.
Yeah. And I don't know, I think I almost damn near pissed myself because I didn't want to pass by that kitchen because I was so scared of that dog. But shout out to Tiger one time. But what I wanted to get into was, man, you were my introduction to like a lot of things, because like I grew up obviously in a Dominican household. There are certain like American things that you're not exposed to.
Yeah.
Like my parents were not Disney people, so you know, I had no idea anything about Disney characters or anything like that, or it has to be something like huge that has like international appeal for them to like say, yeah, this is what I watched when I was little. I remember my dad used to say like Popeye was one of those things that he used to watch when he was little.
Yeah, my pops used to tell me the same thing as well, Popeyes.
Yeah, and he would recall cartoons like Tom and Jerry and shit like that. Like these are like classic cartoons that are like dumb old.
Yeah.
But I wasn't like cultured to a bunch of like American shit until I was introduced to it at your guys' house. And you know, like with like movies and shit, like I know growing up he was like mad big into like Star Wars and like
Still am. Love the new movies coming
like,
out.
Big into like Lord of the Rings and shit like
Lord
that.
of the Rings, Pokemon.
Yeah, and then there was like video games, man. Like my real introduction to video games was like somebody's N64 that they brought, not N64, Super Nintendo.
Okay.
They brought it to my house and played it. But it's one of those things where like it wasn't my console, so I couldn't even play. I had to watch somebody else play it, and it was like, oh, you know, I saw Mario for the first time. I was like, yo, this shit looks lit as hell.
Yeah.
But man, did I find like the best neighbor to introduce me into video games, because
we had it all.
I feel like you had probably every console imaginable and like mad games for like each console.
Yeah.
And that was really where I got my introduction to a bunch of games. And man, I remember it's funny how nostalgia works, because man, I think about those games and it still puts me in that little seat I used to sit, like just like looking at the screen and shit, or you know, taking the thing out
Yeah, blowing out the
just
conscious out.
just like doing that, like it puts me right back into that. And I remember games. It was like there was like this Rampage game that we used to play on TV.
Yeah, that's what it was. Rampage was
yeah,
like you could choose out of the 3 monsters and just go to all the cities, knock down the buildings.
Oh my god, I used to love that
Yo,
game.
what? Seriously, you know they came out the movie with Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
Yeah, I never watched it, but I do remember that movie came out. Man, I was just introduced to so many games. I don't know. I feel like I've heard enough of myself. Like, what was it like from your perspective? I don't know if you remember, because I don't remember. It's hard for me to remember the first time ever that we met, like where we crossed paths. But I'm curious, like, what were your first impressions? Like, just like, how did you even find out about me? How did we find out about each other? Do you remember that at all?
Honestly, I really don't remember how we found out about each other.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was just more of like, you know, our families knew each other, and then probably that's how we got along. But I always remember the times you would come over, and like you said, we would play the Rampage together.
Yeah.
We had the Final Fantasy, Sonic, Pokemon, all of that.
Yes.
And shout out to my older brother, because a lot of that was his games. Hand me down.
That makes sense now.
Yeah, exactly. So he always had like the Super Nintendo as well. We always blow the cartridges when the game wasn't working. But one thing I do remember though was feeling blessed, because at the time when I was young, my brother and sister were 10 years older than me. So
that's true.
Yeah. So while I was 4, they were already 14, teenagers, you know, doing whatever they were doing.
Yeah.
So it was hard for me to try to have any type of relationship. So then, you know, door was open, and here you are yourself and Nadine, and you know, we just started forming that relationship with one another. That's the trio in that building.
Word. Yeah. When I think about it, I don't know how any of us came together, but I remember it being lit, because I was like, oh shit, I live mad close to somebody cool, and my parents somehow have no problem with me going up to your apartment and hanging out there for the day. I was like, it was like my first feeling of like, oh shit, like I have a friend. And, you know, man, there was mad laughs and mad like, oh my God, just like right now, like it looks like I'm looking like at the kitchen, but in my head, I'm like looking through.
It's like you got a ton of images in your mind.
Yeah, just like all of these things, and like, you know, the holidays and stuff, man. Like the way that y'all used to like decorate your tree. I distinctly remember like these like Flintstone ornaments for some reason. Like it's like that's mad specific. That's a mad specific idea, but there's like bits and pieces of that past that like I'm grabbing onto, and I'm like, oh shit, like I distinctly remember that.
Yeah, because we had the whole family set. It was Fred Flintstone, Barney, his wife, Wilma. Yeah.
How long did y'all live there? I don't even. Do you remember when y'all moved?
Yeah, I remember I was still in grammar school when we moved. I wasn't in high school, so it must have been early 2000, 99, 2000 when we must have moved to the house, because we've been there almost close to 20 years.
Yeah. And man, it's crazy because I'm remembering other shit like when it came time to eating, man, do you know how... I was so trash as a little kid. As far as my eating preferences, man, can you believe that I went to their house, a Puerto Rican household, that to any other person, they'd be like, oh my God, you know they got some good ass food. So, and obviously, you know, our parents are old fashioned, so they mostly cook at home. And, you know, that's just kind of how it is. And so, even thinking back to it now, man, I feel like every time I went to your house, something smelled good. But I never ate any of that. Anytime it came to, like, you know, your mom asking me, like, hey, like, we made some food. You want some? I'm like I would push back at first and be like, no, I don't want anything. Yeah. And then she'll be like, oh, come on, you got to eat. Like, you've been here all day. I know you're hungry. And then she'll be like, okay, I'll take some white rice. And I know you know where I'm going with this. And she'll be like, oh, but you don't want, we made like chuleta, or we made beans, or we made this. You don't want to wear any of that? I'm like, nah. He's like, I know you must want something on there. And of all things, I said ketchup. Of all things.
Yeah, I looked at this guy like, ketchup?
Yeah. Oh, yo, I was so.
I remember that clear as day.
It's one of those things where, like, even I look back and I'm like, what the hell, man? You could have been eating chuleta with like beans and some other shit.
Candy beans.
Yeah, you could have been eating good, but you decided to put ketchup on your rice, like. All right, whatever. I'm gonna let that old me roll, but like, jeez. And that's like, you know, one of like those lingering memories. I remember even when y'all used to like order in and they would order Chinese food or whatever.
Yeah.
I was always, and it's funny, I didn't find out about this until maybe last year. Your parents would always tell me like, oh yeah, put duck sauce on that, like it makes it taste a lot better. And I'm like, ew, duck sauce has duck in it, so I don't want it. And that's like, I don't know if I had ever articulated why I didn't want duck sauce, but in my head I thought that's why. I was like, oh,
it's
like
the juices of a duck.
Yeah. I'm like, in my head I'm thinking of like a duck as like a towel, and you just like,
you see all the juices go like to the packet, like this is exactly what we're gonna give them.
This is how we make duck sauce, and I'm like, ew, like I don't want that shit. Bro, it wasn't until like last year that I found out that's just like apricot and yellow number 5 or something like that. Yeah. But it actually makes it taste good, and now I put duck sauce.
Yo, doesn't it open up your eyes to a new world, right?
After all these years, your boy eating duck sauce.
Got a whole bunch of flavors just igniting in his mouth.
But it's funny, like, man, I think back to myself as a little kid. I'm like, fuck, like what world was I living in? Like, if I like, I don't know. I feel like growing up, we all like live in our like little worlds, and we're like, you know, the king of our little world, and kind of like moving pieces together. But especially as a little kid, you really have no idea what you're doing, and that was more so of like what we talked about off air about just my general upbringing, man, and my apology to Olga. Kind of just my general upbringing, man. I lived in a pretty strict household, mostly because of my dad, and that didn't contribute to a personality where I was like open to new shit.
Yeah,
it meant, you know, there were rules for everything, and I didn't ever think about going outside of those rules because I was afraid of what would happen. I remember distinctly being a little kid and going to like school and them saying like, hey, what's your name? You know, how you have to like introduce yourself to the class and shit. And I felt embarrassed to even say my own name because, one, it's a weird ass name. As a little kid, I can't process what the fuck does that mean? I see people named Carlos. I see people named John. I'm like,
Juan.
Yeah,
I'm Carly.
Like, why is my name a Yasser? And why am I supposed to make any sense of that? And it would be like this weird reaction when I tell them my name, and they'd be like, "Hey, like, where did that come from?" I'm like, "Well, that's a pretty dumb question. It came from my parents. Like, I didn't make it up. I wasn't born and was like, yes, sir, that's the first name I want to have.
Go, that's the name I'm gonna choose in this life.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, just because I want to hear more of your voice, I've been kind of like derailing through my memory patterns. Thinking about names in general, if you were allowed to choose your name when you were born, what do you think you would go with?
You know what? I've thought about that, and it's kind of hard. Honestly,
it is hard to think about it because
it definitely is. Because sometimes I think that people. Have you ever had that experience where somebody will come up to you to say, for example, like, my name is Joel. They'll say, oh, you don't look like a Joel. You look like a James or
like,
whatever
what
the
the
case.
hell does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't understand. What is that supposed to mean? Like, how do I look like a James? What does a James even look like? You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, if it was up to me, I'd probably do something real stupid, like call myself Frankenstein or something like that. Come out. Because honestly, I know for some people a name means a lot to a person. Yeah. Right? But for me, sometimes people get my name mixed up. They'll call me Julio, or to call me John, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I don't really get that upset how like other individuals be like, oh, you don't know my name, because at the end of the day, it's all really about the person and how you are as an individual.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could totally relate to that, and it was almost like I basically had to get used to it at a very early age that nobody was gonna say my name right. And it's funny because me and him were friends, and I remember probably one of the more egregious pronunciations of my name. I was called Jaserve, and
Just serve.
yeah. I mean, close enough. Like I said, man, I was little. I just wanted to be loved. Like, like I don't give a shit about my name.
Nah, it is.
I didn't make it up.
And the thing is, too, when you have a name like that, you know for a fact that people are gonna start butchering it.
Oh yeah. But that's the thing. When you're little, you're like, oh wait, but his name is, let's say, William, and you call him William. Like, why does everybody mispronounce my name?
Yeah.
And it was like that realization. Oh shit, my name is hard to pronounce. But that's not something you think about when you're little. You're just like, I guess this is the name my parents gave me.
Yeah, and of course, and then you never know too, because little kids, they're so truthful and so mean, so they could be like, oh, that's a funny name, and start picking at you, and you just start ending up feeling some type of way where it's just,
I went through everything because my name has the word ass in it, and as you can imagine, little kids saw that, and it was right for the picking.
Yeah, that was like a target right there for them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'd say I probably had to develop thick skin pretty early on, and just kind of deflect and say, all right, I agree with you guys. My name is pretty trash. Like, I didn't pick it, so I will take no responsibility for it.
Yeah. I will say this though. Thank God that they did name me Joel, because honestly, if I was to ever have my own kids, it would be hard for me to pick a name, because sometimes I'm so selfish, and it'll be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna name my kid Oliver just because I wanted to name him Ali. Yeah. Just have the nickname Ali. Come over here.
Yeah.
Just because of that. That would be me.
Hey,
you know what I mean?
That's not even bad. Yeah, I think parents pick all sorts of different reasons. Do you know why your parents named you Joel?
I do, actually. So supposedly they were reading the Bible and they saw the book of Joel. There's a few chapters, but they really enjoyed that name and what the message had to do with it. They never told me exactly what the message is. Maybe I should go ahead and look at what it is. Yeah. But yeah, that's the reason why they decided to name me Joel, was because of the book of Joel in the Bible.
And I do think that is a common thing, like,
oh yeah,
people name their sons after like
Mark, Jacob,
disciples. Yeah. But I totally forgot the train of thought I was gonna go on. Oh yeah, at this point, if I were to name myself, I really have no idea. Because at this point, I spent so many years fighting the name of Yasser that I'm like, well, I'm living with this, so now this is like my brand. You don't find many Yassers, so chances are, I'm the Yasser you like. There's probably
2 thumbs up for this guy.
Yeah. The other guy's probably like a serial killer. Don't listen to that guy.
Seriously, don't. This is the Yasser.
This is the one and only, the true one. Officially,
go man, myth, and legend.
Yeah, word. But damn, I had this thought in my head. I totally forgot. But anyways, because we ain't on no script. And then when you guys moved, it was like, dang, I lost my friend. Like, but the cool thing is that I was still able to go over, and first person I've ever went like on a sleepover to their house, and it was cool, man, because like at that other home, you guys had like everything. You guys had the pool.
It was a lot more spacious now.
Space.
Had my own room.
Yeah. Even more video games. Like
the video games just kept piling up. Yeah.
Bro, like I feel like it almost feels like we invented Twitch before it happened. And my weird way of thinking of that is I was totally fine because like this guy had mad video games, but he was also like good at every game he played. And so I just kind of sat back in the basement. Like I didn't even care that I didn't have the controller like playing. I would just watch and I'd be like, yo, this is mad entertaining. Like I'd watch you play, like I remember GTA like Vice City. Yeah. And I still remember, you know how like when you drive to like a specific checkpoint that you have like that purple light that you have to like drive to? Like
yes.
I remember that distinctly. And I'm like, man,
those missions used to be so annoying because if you're driving a car and it hits a particular bump of the wheel, it turns over and you got.
Oh yeah, the physics was like
it's just horrible. It's like, oh my god, but yeah.
And it makes me think, man, like the type of graphics that we used to think were impressive back then.
Right, we were like, yo, this is so fucking realistic. And now we play, the PlayStation 4 and Xbox was all these realistic scenes. It's just like, yo, this shit was trash when it came to graphics.
Yeah. Yo, shout out to GTA one time. Like, I feel like that game...
for real, remaster that for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One.
That shaped a lot of just... I was exposed to a lot, like, through my friendship with him. And this is such a weird segue, but yo, shout out to Byro, because he looks like a character from GTA in his new video page.
He unlocked that new skin in GTA.
Yo.
Oh, shit. Byro, we love you, man.
Yeah.
Shout out to you all and congratulations on that video, man. Much love, though. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Oh, one of the odd segues was because you had mentioned that, your parents named you for something they read in the Bible, and it made me think, man, bruh, this is how you know like the depths of like how far I went. Yo, I went to church just so I can like hang out with this guy.
Yo, but that was the best part of church, though. Seriously, because don't get me wrong, I have nothing against religion.
No,
I love the fact of what religion stands for. But it was just something about me that it didn't matter where I went to. It could have been a church, it could have been a mosque, could have been a temple. I just never felt comfortable in those places. I never liked giving my time to them.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, like I said, it's an awesome place. So the thing that
And
made
the
it the
people
best,
were cool as hell.
Yeah, the people were cool. But what made it the best part was I was able to see you. That's the only reason why I never really fought or struggled. Actually, the moment where you weren't able to come no more is the moment where I really started fighting and struggling to even go there because my one reason, my best friend is no longer there. So it was just like, I'm not feeling like going.
And I think the church had moved location. And
that church was always moving from location to location.
Yeah, and that just made it easier. I'm like, well, it's no longer like right across the street from where I live. I'm gone. But yeah, just so y'all know, man, like, I was willing to sit through an hour of like standing and sitting. And let me read this verse again. Nothing against religion or church and all that stuff.
It's just not for everybody.
Yeah. And even like in my household, like I didn't grow up really going. My parents were like lazy religious.
Okay.
There'd be like a mass that they do on TV on Sundays.
Everybody just gonna say want to be on TV.
And my mom would turn to that be like, okay, yeah, I'm sitting through mass. And mind you, she's like laid down.
She finding loopholes to this shit. That's what's up.
She just laid down in her bed and just watched the service. And I was just like,
yo, I swear, if your mom had Instagram right now, she'll be like, I'm attending Sunday service.
I'm like, looking back on that, I'm like, man, if that ain't the laziest way to go to church.
Yo, for real, but I like it though.
Yeah,
I like it.
Like, but yeah, so yeah, I went to church just to like hang out with this guy, and I used to go over to that other house, and a lot of memories there too.
Yeah,
and at the time, I think you had other. Was it your brother that was living down there also? Like,
so how it was going was when we first moved into the house. So it was myself, my parents, and my sister all on the first floor. Then they remade the basement. So my brother was still on the first floor with us for a bit. Yeah. So they remade the basement. He went downstairs, and then we had my grandparents upstairs on the second floor.
Okay, yeah. Speaking of which, how your brothers and sisters doing? How are your parents doing?
Well, they're all doing okay with, what they're going through. But, growing up, we kind of like went our separate ways. Like I said, they were already 10 years older than me. Yeah. So when I was already in high school, they were already off doing their own thing. So I never really had too much of a relationship with them. Yeah. But, we took our licks in as any family would, obviously. But at the end of the day, it looks like everybody's doing their own thing. Everybody's, happy. Well, which is the ultimate thing that you could wish for, even if you don't talk with one another.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's all you can ask for. And
the one thing I will say though about my brother and my sister that I give so much respect to was that when I was in high school, I'm not really too much of a fighter or call myself like a gangster or rip or run the streets or anything of that nature. Because you know me, I was
either.
more.
I ain't about that life.
I ain't about that life. I was more into like my video game creativeness and
Facts.
you know other stuff like let's go play ball, bowling, things of that nature.
Yeah.
What I do give credit to them was that they kept me away from all that because growing up, the time that they were growing up was called the Attitude 90s, right?
I was not aware of that.
Yeah, you know, some people call it the Attitude 90s or the Wrong 90s, depending on, you know, we go also wrestling style, things of that nature. But those who grew up in the 90s and they were out in the streets were doing a lot of stuff that they say weren't supposed to do. And when they grew older, all that was for lessons for them, and they tried to keep me away from all that. And what was crazy that at the time, I was upset about that because I felt like I wanted to be part of that life. But then when I grew up, it was just like, oh, nah, I really didn't want to be a part of that life. And don't get me wrong, I know individuals who, you know, do what they have to do, but everybody has their own stories and own reasons for doing it. But at the end of the day, I will say this, that I do give a lot of credit to my brother and sister for steering me away from that life. Because if they weren't there, I think I would have jumped into that life just to like try to prove something to somebody else and not even myself.
It's an
you know,
ego thing,
absolutely, it definitely was.
And man, that really does. Growing up, I had, well, now reflecting on my time growing up, with what I know now, and especially what you just said right now, I shared both a resentment and an admiration for the way I was raised.
Okay.
Like, and thinking about how there's chances are if your parents are doing something, there's a reason.
Yeah.
Whether they don't explain it to you or whatever, because you're too little to understand, too stupid to understand. In the time, you're just like in the mix, and you know, like you were saying, you wanted to be part of that, but you know, your brothers and sisters like pulled you aside from that. When I think back, there were a lot of times where I resented my parents for not letting me go out with friends, or like not for, you know, I think there's a spectrum to it. They were a little too strict to the point where like I didn't even, it's weird because since I grew up as kind of like a people pleaser, I just grew up wanting to make my parents proud.
Okay.
And so it was never like, man, I can't wait to live on my own so I can like do whatever I want and like disobey everything you guys taught me. Is like, even now, like I'm living on my own and I'm still fairly conservative. I'm not out in these streets. I'm not, you know, going to the club every night. I'm not. I'm relaxed, man. I'm chill. I'm reserved. I actually don't mind being home now. To me, there's nothing cooler than spending the night watching like some stand-up comedy and shit, and just, you know, eating some good food or whatever, and just like relaxing. I could be washed for that. That my that my view of fun is not going out to the club and shaking my ass, but
you know what? That's perfectly fine though, because I'm just like you. I was never really a club person, only for the simple fact that, you know, this is something that I'm trying to learn as well. It's some dance moves. It was always funny because I always tell people like, yeah, I'm gonna be Hispanic. I'm a Hispanic with no rhythm whatsoever. I got some stiff ass hips, so you know, there's a few individuals who, you know, help me with some moves and things of that nature. But when I was younger, you know, going to the club was like the shit to do. You know what I mean? Go link up with people. Yeah. And I just never felt it, because at the end of the day, what would happen, I would always go to the bar. So in my mind, I was like, y'all better just go to a bar, because that's exactly what I'm going to end up doing. But I will always trade a night in the club for a night with friends around like a campfire or something of that nature. Yeah. That's something that I would rather do, be out hiking or in a campsite, 100%. A few good friends, you know, cooking up some s'mores, having some awesome stories. I'd rather trade that. Have that.
Yeah, for sure. And when I look back, you know, there's parts that I resent. I'm like, man, I could never have any friends and I could never have people over. But now looking back on it, it's kind of like, they kept me out of a lot of danger.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, some of the people I grew up with were not kept out of that.
Yeah.
And so I see where their life has led.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, not to say one way is better than the other. You know, like we've talked about before, you know, sometimes people get put into situations where they got to do what they got to do.
Yeah.
But
know,
now,
life is not easy for everybody.
Exactly.
And you know what? Honestly, it never really was meant to be easy. Life is just a set of lessons that you're constantly learning.
yeah. And so I've been able to like open my mind up to basically seeing both sides and seeing, okay, you know, I might have not had the most lit childhood, pretty deprived, but you know, now as an adult, I have the opportunity to, like, I can't let that past like hold me back.
Yeah.
I can't let the fact that I didn't have much friends growing up, I can't let that affect me. I can't continue living life that way because, hey, the life I'm living now is totally up to me, and so
Yeah, absolutely.
you know, I can't put myself in that shell. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
you own your life in your hands.
exactly. So it's like, oh, you didn't have friends? Go make friends.
Yeah.
Now you could do all of that. But also now you don't have that same protection. So you have to like remember what you've been taught and not put yourself in situations where you're gonna mess yourself up because you know, you can ruin everything that you've worked to build up to this point.
And that's the one thing about life I understand now is that it takes you so long to build something, but a
100%.
matter of seconds for it to be torn down with like the wrong decision.
Yeah. I remember, weird ass segue, but there's this movie that was adapted from a comic for Batman. It was The Killing Joke.
Yes.
And in that one, there's like this famous monologue that the Joker has about something about like it just takes one bad day
for you.
Yeah.
All it takes is one bad day to make a person go insane.
Yeah. And I love like that series, and I love the Joker as a villain.
Yes.
Just because psychologically there's so much behind there. Like he's not like your regular villain where he's like, oh, he's like mad strong and mad formidable and you know whatever.
Yeah.
He's a very psychological character.
Yes. And that's what makes him so amazing.
Yes, he's probably the top as one of the villains just because of,
you know, I'm actually upset with the list. I believe it's from comicbook.com. Don't get me wrong. I think Magneto's an awesome villain.
Shout out to Magneto.
They got,
like he's gonna be like, yeah. He's gonna be somewhere watching the podcast like, yeah.
he's gonna tell you want to join the brotherhood. And they had Joker number 2. Dude, I don't know why, but I was just so furious about that. Don't get me wrong, Magneto's awesome. I always thought to myself that Joker is like the number one. But I don't care what comic book. It could be DC, Marvel, Dark Horse. Joker is the number one villain of all time.
He is, at least to me, just because there's so much depth mentally behind what he is as a character, and the way he is with words, and you know the guy who plays him, Mark Hamill, like his voice is, oh my god,
especially for the animated series, it's freaking amazing.
Oh my god, his voice is he is Joker.
Yeah, and let me tell you, he's played a lot of roles that he's just like, yeah, that's you are Luke Skywalker, you are the Joker in the animated series.
I think he was on a panel at Comic-Con, and like he did the laugh live in audience, and I had like goosebumps. I was like, "Oh,
dude, a
shit!"
chill went up my spine,
into
my
like,
brain,
ooh.
bro. It's like that meme for all the signs that the brain starts doing, and it goes into the into the cosmic universe. Like, yeah, that's how I felt like when I heard that laugh.
Yeah, I was like, "Woo!" Like, I felt that chill. I'm like, "That's the fucking Joker right there." But anyways, like, yeah, it was just to say, you know, it just takes one bad day.
It does,
and so. You know, that's why I don't. Even though as humans we all judge.
Yeah, of course, it's hard for us not to, like you said,
I try
because
not
we're
to
human.
judge people's lives, but I also, even if when I do judge, I always put into context of like, I don't know that I would have done much better in that situation.
Absolutely,
because you know, if you get put into the same shoes as them, it's like, whoa. Yeah. There's suddenly a bunch of shit that I can't handle.
Honestly, what I always disliked, something that I did, was me, that I always judge other individuals, be like, oh, I wouldn't do that in that situation. I was always fucked up because of the simple fact that this is how I know karma is real. So I would say, you know, I would never do that in that situation. And then maybe a year or two later, I find myself in that situation. I do the complete opposite of what I said I would do.
Yeah.
So that in itself was humbling and taught me like, hey, listen, you know what? Never really talk about something that you've never been through because you really don't know what you're doing in that situation. I've met so many individuals be like, oh, this is what I would do. But when that situation comes, no, it's something completely different than what you said.
It's totally like an ego thing. Like somebody would be like, oh man, like if somebody tells you, hey, I just got beat up by this person. And you would be like, oh, if that was me, like,
I would have fucked them up. Yup, shut up. I'm like, whatever, man.
You wouldn't have done shit. You would have got your ass beat too.
Like, I know you, man. But we grown up with one another. You would not do that. Stop fronting. I feel you. And like I said, it was something that I worked on for me because at the end of the day, I always work on myself little by little. And I was just like, yo, you know, that's kind of fucked up of me to tell people, oh, yeah, this is what I would do in that situation. But I've never been in that situation. So how the hell can I really tell you what to do? I can't. I haven't been there.
Yeah. It's funny because, you know, after that whole, I don't think I ever explained, but you know, after they moved to the other location, you know, we spent some time there and, you know, I'd go on like sleepovers and whatnot.
Matter of fact, it was one of the sleepovers when he introduced me chips into sandwich. Yo, I thought he was crazy.
Bruh, do not underestimate that.
Go, especially some Dorito nachos.
Bruh.
What?
Ooh, which I know about that.
Yeah. Go, y'all know about that life.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, there was a time, you know, I'd go to sleepovers or whatever, and then for whatever reason, my dad pulled the plug on everything and was like, hey, you're not going there anymore. And that my whole world came crushing down. I was like,
that really broke my heart because in my mind, I was like, yo, was it something that we did?
Absolutely not. And the thing is that, you know, it didn't come from me at all. Because, you know, as far as I was concerned, I was having the time of my life. Every time I went there, I had a great time. And shit, like, it'd be like whenever your mom would call my mom and say, hey, we're picking them up this weekend. And then my mom would tell me, I'd be like, hey, my weekend about to be lit.
Oh, man, I used to love that.
Yeah. And I'd be like, whoop. Like, I didn't know what I was going to do this weekend, but now I do. Like, my weekend about to be lit as hell. And then just bloop.
The one thing I will say that was kind of annoying, you know, for all the viewers there, that if he was up at 5 o'clock in the morning, guess who else was up at 5 o'clock in the morning? This guy right here. Bro. But it was awesome though, because then we would start our day and it would just be lit.
Yeah, start your day mad early.
Yo, for real, 5 in the morning. I was like, yo, don't you sleep, bro?
Oh my God, yo.
Go, team no sleep over here and shit.
Yeah, not even, bro. It's like, it's team wake up early because like I could wake, like, it's weird and I'm still like that. As you could tell, like I had like an Insta story this morning at like 7 in the morning, just like talking stuff. And I know,
but that must be like clockwork for you to wake up at like 7 o'clock, right?
Yeah, and that's why I had never any issue being late to school. Like I was always mad early.
Oh,
and,
not me. I was always late to school.
Yeah, and shit. Even today, like I wake up for work early also, and I'm still. You know, I get up and it's like routine. It's like clockwork. I go, I get ready, I make my coffee, and then I'm off to the races. Yeah, so it really, like my whole world kind of came crashing down because it was like, oh, so I can't go there anymore without any explanation or nothing at all.
Oh, so it was just like that. He
just like, he's like, oh, you can't go no more. And I'd say why, and we talked off air how the relationship I had with my dad was not the kind of relationship where there was much dialogue. It was more like, hey, I'm the dad and I'm right because I'm your dad. And so I cannot be wrong. And so don't argue with me. Don't ask me shit. You don't need to know why I'm doing anything. And as you can imagine, as a little kid, I'm like, that's fucking annoying as hell. Like,
it really is.
So you mean to tell me I've built like this friendship all these years and I'm mad cool with their family, and you're just gonna be like, hey, you're not going anymore, and then I ask why and you're like, don't ask me why. It's like till this day this guy doesn't tell me why that occurred, and so that's why that's part of the reason I shouted out to people in the beginning and thanked them for Because I never got to say like goodbye. I never got to say, hey, I'm gone for your life forever.
Yeah, no, that is true. And like I said, loved you so much. Like, you know, you're definitely part of the family. Absolutely.
Yeah. So since there is that considerable gap, right? It turned out that years later, the only time because you also went to Dickinson, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, again, contrary to popular belief, this is not Dickinson podcast. I just happen to know a lot of people from Dickinson. All right. Now that I got that disclaimer out the way, I feel like I have to say that every episode because like people keep telling me, oh, your podcast is like a Dickinson reunion. I'm like, no,
it's not. It's just that those are the people I know.
Yeah. But the time for years since that time where I couldn't go to your house anymore, it was kind of like a black hole, and you know, you were on your path, I was on my path, and like I'd not hear of like you or your name for like years, and it probably wasn't until like high school where it turns out I think we had like maybe similar friend groups or something.
Yes.
But I somehow had gotten introduced to you again, and they're like, oh, you know, we're going to hang out, and our friend Joel's coming. And I'm like, oh, what Joel? And it's funny, like, after all these years, it was almost like being introduced to a new person. Yeah. And when they tell me, I'm like, man, I know that Joel. What you talking about? I know him more than you.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I think it was the first time we met again after that whole church debacle thing was actually, I believe, in Jose's house. I think that's where we saw each other again. It was just like, holy shit. Because I got introduced to Jose by Carlos.
Oh,
because Carlos already knew Jose.
And where did you know Carlos from?
Dickinson. That's where I knew Carlos for the first time. Was
Dickinson. I've had him on some episodes. Great guy.
I'll tell you one thing about Carlos. The love that this man has for individual is just crazy because, you know, like I said earlier, I was going through a lot of loneliness and depression and things of that nature, you know, and he was there. Yeah. Like he was there even when I felt like nobody else was there. He was there. He was always that presence. And from the get-go. I think we actually, matter of fact, we knew each other the summer of 8th grade going into 9th because I was part of a program there. I don't know if it was called Jumpstart or something else, but that's when we first met and we just hit it off right off the bat. That it was just that instant connection, and dude, it was just phenomenal, and he's still a big part of my life. Yeah. A big guy with an even bigger heart. Shout out to Carlos one time. Go and make sure you also check out his Instagram page too. Stay Fluff, man. Yeah. Check out I'm actually gonna post a link in this video, and this video is gonna come out like 3 Sundays from now. But I'm gonna post a link. I will post a link in the description of a video I actually helped him made because he's trying to get into like creating awareness for the bigger individuals in the wardrobes. Yeah, and I helped him like record this video where like awesome, where he got something from Stitch Fix. Okay, because they had just started like this plus size. I think I may have saw that video. Yeah, and so he brought the items. He showcased each of them. He wore all of them and then kind of had like a little criticism / feedback for Stitch Fix to like get their shit together. Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna post a link in the description for that YouTube video. Like Carlos is so cool. Like I'm totally fine like helping him with like shit like that because like we said on the episode that I had him on, you know, I don't think the plus size guys have really any representation. Yeah, they really don't. Anywhere. Not in the market that is out there today. Yeah, and so shout out to the big guy Carlos. Go check his stuff out. Cool guy. Like and subscribe and do all that stuff. Yeah, do all the good stuff. You already know. Yeah, comment, do the thing. But yeah, okay. So you had met through Jose through Carlos. Oh, yes. That's interesting. And so, okay, so. What was your time at Dickinson like? Because you guys just had your reunion, but you didn't go because you was like, fuck. Yeah, I was like, fuck this shit. Honestly, I would have to say the 4 years in high school it was weird because I always felt like I was kind of like an oxymoron and stuff. I was still going like through all that depression stuff, but it was still like the best time of my life.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because I was always surrounded by like people, and kind of like you, I've always been a people giver.
Yeah.
And I also think that's one of the reasons why I really haven't found anything in life that, like, especially when it comes to like, maybe career wise or what I want to do. Because I was always out here pleasing people, but maybe you should be this or maybe you should be that. And I was just like, oh, maybe
you
I
have
should
all these
try.
ideas for other people.
Yeah, exactly, right? But no, best time of my life. You know, I was going through some troubled times in the household, you know, and it was just a lot of bickering and fighting that was going on at the time. And, you know, when I was growing up, like you, I didn't want to be surrounded by all that and have that type of vibe. So I just always wanted to be out. And I was always out with friends. I was eating the basketball court. Matter of fact, we were at a house party one time and I almost burned the place down. It was by accident though, okay? Because I remember we were in the
intent matters. When it comes to burning an entire building.
No, thank God, nothing really happened. But still, we were down in a house party in the basement, right? And somehow, some way, I'm on the wall. I have a girl dancing on me, and then there's just a line. So it's myself, a girl, guy, girl, right? Yeah. So we're all there grooving or whatever. And I'm like this. I start sniffing. I was like, yo, does anybody else smell gas in this room right now? And remind you, everybody was, you know, lighting up cigarettes, things of that nature, right?
So you smell smoke everywhere.
So I'm smelling all that. And I'm like, what the hell? And I look at the stove. I'm like, holy shit, we accidentally turned the stove on because we were dancing so hard that we actually accidentally turned on the buttons and the gas was actually filling the room.
That's wild. Yo. So in addition to an explosion, y'all could have all died of like carbon monoxide.
Yo, pretty much.
That's crazy.
What, dude? I was out of my mind when that shit happened.
And you were never invited again.
Well, that's that household, that's for sure. Oh man, but yeah, best time of my life. I remember. It was weird because, like you said, you would come over for sleepovers, but I was never allowed to go to other people's.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which was interesting. Yeah, which was totally weird. And you know, me and my mother would have this discussion like, why is it okay for you to have someone over that's their child, but I can't go somewhere else? And she was always saying that, oh, because I don't know those individual things of that nature. But even when she did know the parents, it was still, you know, kind of hard.
And no, in my head, like probably as a parent, that makes sense. Like they're totally fine having somebody come over to your house because at least it's in your house and
you
they
can
have
see
more control of
exactly.
everything. Versus, you know, laying the child off to some house. You have to have mad trust in those people to
absolutely
make sure nothing happens to you.
Yeah, and like I said, at the time I was so young, I didn't understand. But now, obviously, that you're older, you know,
man, getting older really gives you perspective on things.
It really does, you know, because when you're young, they always tell you, "Oh, my parents are wrong. And then once you grow older, you're like, "Holy shit, my parents were actually right." Yeah, but that was one thing that I never really liked. Yeah. But eventually, what happened was that I kind of like, you know, broke her down, and then I was eventually able to go to sleep.
Oh yeah, because you know the thing is when your parents say no, you never take no for an answer. You just keep begging.
Exactly.
You're like, so I'm gonna ask you at dinner. I'm gonna ask you later when you're watching TV.
And well, the sad part, like, you know, it kind of hurts my heart now, but being in high school, and I guess my hormones were just raging all over the place, and obviously I had an ego bigger than Kanye West at the time, which is I think is fucking impossible. But I would keep breaking them down. And like I said, there was a lot of stuff going to the household. I just didn't want to be there. Mm-hmm. So my mother was always concerned about ending up like my brother and sister when they were doing their stuff out in the streets. Mm-hmm. And like I told you, they did a good job of keeping that away from me. But, you know, for her to protect me since I was the youngest, you know, she started getting super strict. Yeah, I was a baby, so she started getting like super strict, and I didn't like that because it was like, oh, I'm not gonna make kind of the same mistakes that they are. So, dude, I started rebelling. I was staying out late at night, you know, going out to parties, all this and that, right? And then come to find out that I became maybe a fraction of what they were, but still at the end of the day, I was still doing stuff that they were doing. That just made me realize it now. And you know, now since I'm older, we will both sit down and talk about all this, which is awesome because I never felt like I had
was a
that.
real shithead back then, wasn't I?
Definitely. I'll tell them, oh, Mom, I'm sorry for everything I made you go through. Actually, matter of fact, one time she got so mad at me that I was sleeping out in the balcony.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, you learn your lesson when you grow up.
We never understand why our parents tell us the things they do, but there's usually a reason, whether we understand it or not.
Absolutely. And at the time, too, I was ripping around the streets with individuals that I should have
to say the least.
It's sketchy to say the least. Like I said, like I wanted to see what all that was about and everything. But then at the end of the day, it wasn't really all for me. I was more, let me go to like my museums, my events, things of that nature. But you got to get all that stuff out there.
With his thumb up.
No, definitely. And that's something that just happened. Go, can't you tell? Go, cheers.
But okay, and I'm a little scared because I'm looking at usually around this time is when like my camera battery runs out. But before we close this out, I just kind of because there was a bunch of shit I wanted to say, so I'm definitely gonna have you on for another episode so we could like get more of that stuff in there. But I want like you mentioned, if you're comfortable talking about it, like. That you had gotten into like was it drugs to like quell your anxiety
my depression and things of that nature.
So like what was your experience with that? Do you feel like it helped or what?
So at first I never did any, I guess, hard drugs that people want to say like cocaine, heroin, things of that nature. But I was a big pill popper at the time. Taking whatever I could find, and sometimes it wasn't even just to like get high. Sometimes it was just because that's what I wanted to do, just because I was in that state of mind. But then what happened was,
I'm curious, what was your introduction to that? Like, did you ever have to? Because I feel like a lot of people get into that after. They either have like a wisdom tooth taken out or like they have like a big surgery that requires them to have it, and then they taste it and they're like, oh shit, like, or rather they ingest it and they realize, oh shit, this shit makes me feel a certain way. Like, do you remember what your introduction to that was?
I believe it was freshman year in high school, and the introduction to I believe it was an E-pill, ecstasy, that someone introduced me to, and I took that, and I kind of say that's the introduction of what got me into the pill pop, and then I just went to try different stuff.
What was that experience like? Because for context, I have no idea of any of that. So,
well, for me, I'm a natural sweater, so I was sweating a lot, but
shit,
also
right
gets you, but it gets you kind of like amping, also like gets you in the mood to like have sex and things of that nature. Yeah. But there were. Other pills were different, I would have like the shakes and things of that nature. But what actually helped me wean away from the pills were more natural type of drugs. Like I took shrooms also. And
what was that like?
You see, here's the thing when it came to the shrooms. I guess I didn't take them right because my thing is I always wanted that psychedelic type of experience.
Oh, you wanted to see the visuals and
see
the
visuals, have the spirit come down, talk to me and all. But I was taking little by little, so you're supposed to actually take the whole thing to try to have that type of trip. Yeah. But when you take little by little, I felt like I had a lot of energy. I was moving about things of that nature. It was almost very similar to LSD, where you get to get in that mood, but you also sweat like a motherfucker too. But I would have to say those, and especially the marijuana and weed, has helped me wean away from those pills, and especially alcohol. So I was heavy drinker. I would go through an entire 24 case of whatever beer there was there.
And you're a big guy, so that probably...
Oh, hell yeah, man.
Wild tolerance.
Absolutely. We used to have... I moved out from my house a few years back, and I was living with some roommates, and we would throw a lot of parties, and we would just have a whole bunch of alcohol, and I was just like one of the biggest alcoholics ever, just drinking whatever the hell was there. It could be an entire Hennessy bottle, entire Smirnoff.
Jeez, yeah.
So that's what I was basically doing, trying to deal with all my depression and anxiety and the loneliness. But like I said, it's been getting a lot better, because if this was maybe 2 years back, I probably wouldn't have come to this podcast, even though I know you.
Yeah.
Because it was just something about me, like wanting to, we'll get into this maybe in another podcast, things of that nature. But one thing about me, the reason I was so depressed is because I like having people around me, things of that nature, and I wasn't having that, and I wasn't going out as often, and I felt like I wasn't being as sociable, and I wasn't being invited to certain places. So I will always be the one to initiate things, and
that's like the opposite of me.
yeah. So even when I would initiate things, it also kind of made me feel some type of way, because it was like I got into my head, why is it I'm the one always hitting people up and things of that nature? And don't get me wrong, on the flip side too, I just got so bad into it. There are people who were hitting me up, but I just completely flaked on them. And this was like a period of 7 years while I was doing. This is now me actually going out, being more sociable and things of that nature. And I don't have. It was so crazy because I would go out to even the corner store and have like a knot in my stomach just to interact with the individual behind the counter. And the one thing that definitely helped me was that since I got into my head a lot, I always like to make kind of like, borrowing other individuals, make my own writing and music and things of that nature. But I always get into my head because of certain things. And I never thought my stuff was ever any good. So I kind of like put that to the side. But so that was.
Oh, snap. Are we seeing a Joel mixtape in the horizon? Tune into the next episode of Dragon Ball Z. No,
do not tell me that, because my man took 5 episodes to get that spirit bomb off, yo. Well, I was like, next time on Dragon Ball Z.
Here are 5 more fillers.
But like I said in another podcast, we could get into stuff of that nature. Yeah. But I just always get into my head and I think to myself that my stuff ain't good enough, and I just toss that to the side. And always kind of the same thing with people too, that there must be something about me that that they're not inviting me to places and things of that nature. And what get me is that in high school I was that person, and I would have certain reactions that made me feel good. I'd be like, oh, hi, things like that.
That's why in my head, as I hear you describe that, I'm like, yo, shit, at least compared to me, you were always like way more charismatic and way more popular, and I just felt like people had lines to become your friend. Whereas I was just like, oh, okay, I lost like this friend, so I'm like, all right, let me go back into my hole and like, but obviously made friends in grammar school and high school, and I have some of the people on here, but I feel like that title of like best friend doesn't come easily. Yeah, it doesn't come easily or as often in life.
And I used to throw around that word too freely, and even friends. Now I have my best friends, and then I have acquaintances.
For sure.
And that's how I look at it now, because like I said, I was just so loose. They're like, you're my friend. I was giving it out like I was fucking Oprah.
Exactly. Yeah. And definitely not everybody is your friend, and not everybody is your best friend.
Yeah,
that's distinct.
That's definitely for sure. That not people could be your friend, but not everybody's your best friend.
Exactly, and so like I've had some people I can, because really it's about the time you spend with people and the conversations you're able to have with them.
Yes,
and how many levels of yourself you're able to like peel back and like allow them in and let them see your vulnerable side and shit like that. Because, there are other friends that you just talk to about baseball.
Or like, video games or whatever the case may be.
Them Yankees,
But then, I know you're a Red Sox fan.
Exactly. And that's why, because I had a specific friend in mind when I said that. Because he'd tell me that when he knows that they're facing the Red Sox, and I'd be like, oh, like, yeah, whatever, we lost this game, but, we're going to get you on the next one. But it was like, that was like the extent of our conversations. It was like
honestly, I don't think y'all going to do nothing this season, but you're still the champions, though. Still the champions.
It was like, Posada's trash. Oh yeah, what about Pedroia?
Pedroia is badass league.
Just this back and forth or whatever. And geez, like my baseball knowledge is mad old because I just said Posada. That motherfucker hasn't played there for years now. But I got like these super old rosters in my head that. But anyways, only because I'm scared of where this battery and the memory is going. Okay, the camera still sees me. Okay, we're gonna end that one here. We got Damn, we got an hour and 15 there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Damn,
And it's
yeah,
funny
they-
how fast.
Yeah,
time
it really
passes,
did. 'Cause
yeah.
it didn't feel like an hour and 15.
It's funny how time passes in more ways than one.
Yeah, go and crazy. That's not even the entire conversation. Yeah, there's so much more that we could definitely have dived into.
100%. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Working Podcast. I want to thank Joey once again for gracing the kitchen counter. I'm definitely having him back on and have him share more of his gems with you and life experiences. So thank you again for showing up to this one.
For sure.
And that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. Divided we're awesome. Together we're more awesome. Link and build is the motto. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Yo, and just like that, we did a whole hour.